I'm not entirely sure why I'm sharing this, except maybe I need someone else to understand just how twisted my day-to-day has become lately. I work as a maintenance director at a private research facility. The official name doesn't matter, and I'm sure, for my small sliver of peace of mind and a steady paycheck, it's better you don't know. Let's just say you won't find it on Google Maps, and our deliveries come in without any recognizable company logo. When I started, the job description seemed run-of-the-mill. Ensure the labs are up to code, the equipment runs without a hitch, the air stays clean, you get the gist. I wasn't expecting it to be the poster child for normal, given the heavy confidentiality clauses and a job interview that felt more like an interrogation. But nothing screamed, run for the hills either. The pay was good, the benefits better, and I had no compelling reason to decline. After the initial shock of its location, nestled quietly somewhere you could easily mistake it for a forgotten military bunker, I eased into the rhythm. The scientists were the kind you'd expect, brilliant if a bit eccentric, and the other facility staff seemed friendly enough. Then the rules started rolling in, each one more bizarre than the last. It began subtly. First rule, no food or drinks from outside. Fair, I thought, contamination risks and all. Then, always walk clockwise around the central unit. I chuckled at that one, figured it was some sort of inside joke. But the laughter died when I saw the absolute unyielding compliance to the path, their faces serious, almost fearful as they rounded each corner. Then yesterday, things slipped another notch on the weird belt. The new memo listed, among more mundane directives, that all doors, regardless of their use, must be locked and then immediately unlocked twice before entering. Failure to comply would result in immediate termination. It could be a new safety protocol, yet the severe consequence for such a trivial action set my nerves on edge. Keith, another old-timer, leaned over at lunch in the eerily pristine cafeteria, where even the sounds seemed to be hushed to a whisper by unseen buffers, and muttered, "Feels like we're part of some giant Pavlov's dog experiment, doesn't it?" I wanted to laugh, dismiss it as stress or overactive imaginations running wild. Yet the air hung too thick, tasted a bit too sterile, for me to voice those dismissals. Today, the latest rule pushed me further toward questioning my sanity or theirs. Upon receiving any phone call, regardless of origin, we were instructed to answer with the phrase, "No, the crows have not landed yet, hang up and report the call." The first time the phone rang after that memo, I froze, staring at it ring. When I finally picked up, I half expected a prankster on the line. Instead, my hello was met with heavy breathing before I remembered the script. The caller hung up after my awkward compliance with the rule. This absurdity has become my new normal. But here's the cliffhanger for you. While scrubbing down one of the southern storage rooms today, the least visited part of the base, I noticed a seam in the wall that seemed off. Curiosity killed my sense of self-preservation, apparently. The wall, on closer inspection, hid a door. Cold air leaked like a sigh from the edges. No handles, just a smooth panel significantly cooler than the surrounding wall. I haven't opened it yet, but something, maybe the accumulated weight of the growing bazaar or the chilling draft, tells me I have to know what's behind it. What's colder than cold? Because that's how the air feels there, like stepping into a void of winter that shouldn't be possible in a climate-controlled facility. So I left it there for today, unanswered, but tomorrow. Tomorrow, I'm going back with the right tools. Something tells me this job isn't just about fixing leaky faucets or flickering lights, and I'm not sure I'm ready for what I'll find. The clinking of my toolbox mixes with the erratic patter of my heart as I approach the old house. Yesterday left a smudge of otherworldly fear on me, and today, despite the sunlight slicing through the mist, I'm shrouded in unease. The key scrapes against the lock, louder than it should in the morning silence, twisting reluctantly, as if warning me to reconsider. I don't reconsider. Inside, the air touches me with a chill more suited to a crypt than a living room. Goosebumps parade up my arms as I close the door behind me. Remembering the strange, pulsing shadows and the unsettling cold spots from yesterday, I double-check my bag for the new infrared thermometer and the camera. Tools in hand, I head straight to the kitchen, where the trouble first started. The dim light bulb overhead flickers weakly, struggling against the invasive gloom. I replace it. A warm, bright bulb in its place seems to fight off some of the shadows, but the relief is superficial. I begin by measuring the temperature. Round the room. Normal readings, then, by the old Victorian stove, the temperature drops dramatically. 55, 43, 31 degrees. Unsettling, to say the least, in a house with no reported heating issues and outside temperatures climbing above 70. I jot down the readings and decide to test the electrical circuits next, suspecting they might be influencing the temperature somehow. The circuit tester beeps erratically as I move along the walls, peeking in an alcove by the staircase. It's empty, save for a small, grainy portrait of a stern-looking woman from another age looking down at me. Could she be the source of the cold? My practical side scoffs at the notion, though a part of my mind, the part that refused to sleep last night, isn't so sure. Turning from the portrait, I hear a soft thumping upstairs. It's rhythmic, deliberate, heart straining against my ribs. I tell myself it's just the house settling, but the precise, consistent tempo disagrees. With a hesitance that betrays my profession, I ascend the staircase, each step moaning underfoot. The thump grows louder, more impatient. At the top, I glance back. The space below now seems darker, heavier. Swallowing the dread, I grasp the banister for comfort, its varnish worn from years of similar, nervous grips. Down the hall, the thumping leads me to a closed door, not just closed, but slightly ajar as if inviting me to glimpse the secrets held behind. Camera in one hand, a flashlight in the other, I push the door gently. It creaks open, revealing a room cloaked in shadows despite the morning sun outside. The air inside is even colder, a malaise of damp and decay washing over me. Then I see it, the source of the noise, a rocking chair swaying gently by itself. My breath catches. The room has no windows open, no visible drafts, yet there it moves. My hand trembles as I lift the camera, snapping pictures, capturing proof, perhaps more to reassure myself that what I'm seeing is real rather than otherworldly. As the flash illuminates the room, something on the far wall catches my eye. Drawn in an old, flaking paint, almost hidden in the wallpaper pattern, is a symbol. Not just any symbol, an arbor rose, the snake eating its tail. A symbol of eternal return. A cold gust snakes around my ankles. The room suddenly feels smaller, the walls inching closer as panic mounts. Heart pounding so hard it's audible, I realize the bump of my own heartbeat syncs with the rocking chair's rhythm. Turning to leave, I pause from the corner of the room. A whisper, soft yet insistent as if carried across decades, reaches me. My name, uttered in a sigh so familiar yet impossible that it halts me. It's my mother's voice, calling me back, guiding me deeper into the house she'd never visited in our shared lifetime. Fighting every instinct, I step back into the hall, retreating from the room. The whispers turn into a murmur of voices, like leaves rustling in a sudden breeze. Eyes stinging with unshed tears, or is it the oppressive cold? I make my way back downstairs, each whisper a claw on my spine. Outside, the daylight has never been more comforting, though it's dimmed by the horror of what's inside. I know better than to ignore the house's calls, its dark whisperings. But today, I've had enough. My tools, my rationality, everything feels inadequate against the inexplicable. In the safety of my van, I lock the door, staring at the house. Those whispers, they're already tugging at the edge of my memory, urging me to return to uncover all of its secrets. And though every fiber of my practical mind rebels, something deeper, darker, is intrigued. As the daylight wanes, the pull grows stronger. It's not over. It can't be. Driving away, I glance in the rearview mirror. The house recedes, swallowed by the growing dusk, but its presence, its call, lingers, haunting me still. My hands tighten around the wheel. Tomorrow, I know, despite today's terror, I will return. The road beneath my car felt unfamiliar in the twilight. Every bend seemed to stretch longer than I remembered. Every shadow mocked me with the shape of that house. At home, I avoided the dark corners of my rooms and left all the lights burning, their cheerful warmth an antidote to the cold dread that clung to my skin like damp fog. Sleep was a stranger that night. My dreams were infested, not with stark images, but with the pervasive sensation of being watched by unseen eyes. The memory of those shuttered windows and the tint of despair that seemed to stain the house's walls bled into the darkness behind my eyelids. Morning light did little to disperse the fog of my thoughts. I found myself at the breakfast table, mechanically chewing on toast, staring at a patch of sunlight on the carpet that somehow reminded me of her, the woman in the window from yesterday, staring out with hollow eyes filled with silent pleading. By noon, I was back in my car, driven by a compulsion that felt as Natu. Raoul is breathing and as foreign as the dark side of the moon. As I approached the house again, the air grew heavier, as if saturated with whispered warnings. I parked a little further away this time, my heartbeat erratic, a caged bird flapping against my ribs. The front door was ajar, a silent invitation or a sly challenge. I pushed it open, the hinges moaning in protest. The interior was shrouded in gloom, daylight struggling to penetrate the filth-stained windows. My flashlight's beam felt feeble, trembling as if in fear. The air was thick, laced with the smell of mold and something sweeter, rotten. I walked deeper into the house's belly, each step reluctant. The living room was just as I remembered, overturned furniture, papers strewn like the aftermath of a storm. But there was something new, or something I hadn't noticed before, a small, leather-bound book lying open on the floor. As I bent closer, a photo slipped out, fluttering to rest by my boot. It was the woman, younger, vibrant, her eyes not yet hollow. The sorrow hit me sharply, like a physical blow. Sudden movement upstairs jerked my attention from the photo. It was not the timid scurry of a rodent. It was heavier, purposeful. My pulse thrashed in my ears as I considered fleeing, but my legs carried me towards the staircase instead, drawn by the same unnamed force that had brought me back here. Each step on the stairs groaned under my weight, broadcasting my presence. At the top of the landing, the air shifted, cooler, as though breathing in anticipation. The hallway stretched, doors on either side ajar, secrets peering out. I chose the one at the far end, the door slightly more open than the others. The room was stark, stripped of furnishings except for a single chair facing the window. And there, in the dim light, the chair was not empty. A shadow sat, its back to me, still and silent as the grave. My voice when I found it was a dry whisper, "Hello." No reply. The silence stretched, taut as a wire. I stepped closer, my hand shaking as I extended it towards the shadow. Inches away, my fingers trembled in the air, hesitant. As I touched the figure, the fabric of its shirt disintegrated under my fingers, and it collapsed into dust with a soft sigh, as if relieved. Panic gripped me, raw and primal. I spun around to leave, but froze. The woman stood in the doorway, her body solid yet translucent, her eyes deep pools of longing and despair. "You saw me," she whispered, her voice a thread of sound in the still room. I nodded mute, my back against the wall. "Help me," she breathed, stepping closer. What do you need?" My voice was a stranger's, choked with fear. "The book," she said, pointing weakly down the hall. Heart hammering, I fled the room, the woman's presence chilling my spine. I retrieved the book, the photo still resting beside it, now seeming like a talisman. When I returned, climbing the sorrow-soaked stairs, she was gone. I left the house as sunset bled into dusk. The woman's whispered, "Thank you," a cold comfort against the night air wrapping around me. Darkness fell, and in the rearview mirror, I watched the house disappear again, but this time a weight had lifted. Still, as I drove away, I knew in the depths of my soul, the horror wasn't over. There were more stories within those walls, each waiting, hungry for the next return. The road stretched before me like the spine of a sleeping beast, vast and sinister, suffused with a curling mist that rose with the night's chill. My headlights carved tunnels through the fog, and behind me, the last rays of twilight dissolved into a deep, oppressive black. I knew I shouldn't have looked back at the house. My grandmother had always said, "Don't linger on what's behind you. It's how shadows catch up." But shadows, I realized, were not only cast by light, but by memories and the heaviness they bore. The radio in the car was a dull companion, spitting out static and fragments of a late-night talk show, the host's voice buzzing like an insect caught in a jar. I turned it off, suffocated by the attempt at normalcy. The silence left behind was thick, filled only by the sound of the tires against the gravel and my own staggered breathing. I left the windows down, letting the cool air slap against my face, trying to wake myself from the relentless unease that gripped me. As the miles stretched, a peculiar sensation began to uncoil within me, a realization that the house was not just receding in physical distance, but was somehow following me, its essence bleeding into the confines of my car. I could smell the musty odor of its neglected rooms, the sharp, metallic scent of old blood that seemed to seep from its walls. I shook my head, trying to dispel the illusion, but it clung to me, a wet cloth suffocating my senses. It was then that I saw it, the figure standing by the roadside, not more than a child in size. My heart lurched, not again. I slowed the car, the beams of my headlight. GHTS bathing the figure in a stark, white glow. It was a girl, her features indiscernible, shadowed and vague, but definitely staring directly at me. Her hand was raised, palm outstretched towards me as if she was pleading or stopping me. I blinked, and in that instant she vanished, swallowed by the night. I stopped the car, my breath caught in my throat, my hands trembling on the wheel. Logic warred with instinct, one forced calm, the other screamed to tear away from this madness. Then, as if pushed by an unseen force, I found myself stepping out of the car. The air was unexpectedly cold, biting at my skin, the quiet of the night punctured only by my footsteps on the roadside gravel. "Where are you?" I whispered into the dark, half expecting an answer. But there was nothing, just the sigh of the wind through the trees, the distant hush of the world sleeping. I walked a few paces back to where I'd seen the girl, my eyes scanning the darkness. There was a part of me, foolish or brave, that needed to know, to prove to myself it wasn't real, that it was just a trick of the mind, fatigue painting horrors where there were none. As I turned back to the car, the feeling of eyes watching me tightened around my spine. I hurried my pace, eager to leave the spot. When I got back inside the car, the relief of the enclosed space made me sag against the seat. I needed to get away, far from here, from the house, from whatever clung to me. But as I started the engine and glanced in the rearview mirror, my breath snagged. There, in the backseat, was a faint outline, like a smudge of smoke, the silhouette of someone sitting, watching. Every nerve in my body screamed to look, to confront whatever it was. But fear, thick and paralyzing, held me prisoner. Instead, I drove. I drove with the knowledge that I was not alone, that whatever had been in the house had not stayed there. It had followed me, tethered to the core of my fears. The further I drove, the more the certainty sank in. Things from that place didn't let go easily. They lingered, stitched to your shadow, whispered in the creak of your bones. Now, part of me belonged to it, and part of it had come with me. To what end, I didn't know. The road ahead was empty, a void waiting to be filled with more shadows, more whispers. And as I drove into the consuming dark, I realized the horror wasn't just in the house. It was here, with me, always had been.